Back with us on the Sports Mag Zone, we continue with cricket. After an excellent start to their 50-over World Cup campaign, where they beat hosts New Zealand and defending champions England, West Indies women find themselves in familiar territory, needing to win their final match against South Africa to stand any chance of progressing to the semi-finals. With 3 wins and 3 defeats from their 6 matches to date, the Windies are 4th in the round-robin stage, having played a match more at the 5th-placed England. Speaking on Tuesday ahead of their match against South Africa, which is set to start in about 50 minutes' time, the Windies vice-captain Fazeer Mohammed sounded an optimistic note.
Kind of found ourselves in this position, we must win tomorrow and then hope that South Africa can beat India or there can be an upset somewhere along. But we can only control the things that we can control. So tomorrow's game is going to be very crucial and very important for us, and we have to play our best game tomorrow and win and just sit and wait and hopefully be able to go through to the semi-finals. I think once our batters can bat and put runs on the board, we know that we have a good enough bowling team that we'll be able to go out and defend the totals. So I think it's more a matter of our batting giving us some runs to work with, and hopefully we can tighten up in the field as well.
That's Fazeer Mohammed. The international cricket commentator Fazeer Mohammed is still with us. Fazeer, have you seen enough? Well, let me withdraw it and put it differently. Of what you've seen from the women in the 3 wins and the 3 defeats, is there enough in all of that to give you any degree of confidence ahead of this task this evening?
George, let me put it to you this way. If the West Indies could start with victories over New Zealand and defending champions England, and then we find ourselves minutes away from a match against South Africa, where, as you just said, it's another must-win situation for the West Indies, then you're asking me the impossible. I really have no idea what is going to happen next, because it just seems that the West Indies have either hit a brick wall or run out of gas or run out of inspiration. Their last match was a defeat to Pakistan, who hadn't won a single match in the tournament until they played the West Indies. So you look at that last match that South Africa played, which they lost, their first loss of the competition, but they got over 270 against Australia. Okay, they weren't able to defend it, but you look at their bowlers, you look at their overall setup, and the fact that they know as well that they are looking at this as a must-win situation also to ease their passage into the last 4. It looks very, very tough for the West Indies tonight.
Yeah, and what has been a feature of the Windies' performance so far in this tournament is that other players have stepped up in our wins to support what the frontline players would do. But I'm suggesting to you, Fazeer, that, as you said when you were talking about the men earlier, drilling down beyond the headline to look into the real meat of the matter, if you drill down into the West Indies' 6 games so far, you'll realize that we've been carrying our illustrious captain, Fazeer.
We have. But I suppose now is as good a time as any for her to deliver. She did get a half-century in one of the defeats, but at the end of the day, they have to step up. And if I could be allowed to identify what I see as a potential deciding moment, you look at the South African opening bowlers, Martin Cap and Shafin Ismail. This is the best opening pair that you can get as far as the pace, as far as the extent to which they keep the pressure on the batters. So it's going to be up to Hayley Matthews and Deandra Dottin. Not just to see them off, but to give the West Indies a decent start. Whether they are batting first, setting a target, whether they're chasing, that could very well be one of the key points. So yeah, you're right. It comes to the captain, Stefanie Taylor, Hayley Matthews, Deandra Dottin. The usual suspects need to step up in this counter, even as we hope that the others, Shadeen and so many others, that the Chanel Hen can make a contribution that makes a difference. It will again come down to these regulars to make a contribution.
Yeah, Faz, based on how the Windies have gone with the bat, I feel that, the bowlers didn't get a fair chance to show themselves. And I say that because when you have such small totals, and of course I'm ignoring the first 2 wins where we won in a great manner. I'm talking about the rest. When you create such low totals, your bowlers have nothing to really come out and defend. So I feel as if, we didn't get a good showing from them. What's your assessment?
Yeah, well, the bowlers will always have it tough when you're defending a small total. But if it comes to that, for example, tonight, you have to do what you have to do. They did it against Bangladesh. They just managed to scrape home, defending a small total. They were 70-7 at one point, and again another important half century midway through the order lifted them to a total that they could fight with. But if worse comes to worse and the West Indies barely get over 100, you have to tell yourself, look, it's do or die. And not just throw up your arms and say, well, I don't know if they expect us to work miracles. If the batters can't get the runs, the bowlers can't really expect it to do it all the time. But you do what you have to do. And that's why I'm saying, Mariah, that when it comes to a situation like this, make or break, in any sport, in any circumstance, this is when you need to step up. This is when the big names need to step up. Anisa Mohammed has lost her place in the team because she's been too expensive as a bowler. And that is one of the considerations as well. You can't be leaking runs all over the place, especially when you have a concern about the stability, about the batting department. So there are lots of areas of concern. But as I said, I didn't expect the West Indies to beat New Zealand and England at the start of the tournament, but they did so. Let's see what happens tonight.
Yeah, Faz, in a discussion with Res Pereira we had a couple of days ago, we looked to the future of this team because, to be quite honest, the West Indies women's team has had a samey look to it for several years now. I know they were T20 World Champions back in 2016, which is not all that long time ago. But there needs to be some injection of young talent, and there is a question mark over the volume of cricket being played among girls in the teenage years right throughout the region, and a worrying sign to me for the future of women's cricket as far as West Indies is concerned.
And that is a legitimate concern, which is why, and I'm reluctant to bring it up, the discussion took place at the end of last year after the disappointments of the men's team in the World T20, that maybe the women's game will have to suffer if they have to be pouring more resources to revive the men's game, which is a nonsense. In this age that we should be even talking like that. But you're right. In the same way that people are concerned about schools cricket for boys, it's even less for girls. There may be some jurisdictions where there's a lot more happening, but it isn't happening to the extent. Whether that involves sponsorship, whether that involves a real effort from the territorial boards to encourage more young girls to take up the game. Because just as an idea, I've been involved in a coaching clinic in my own community, and there are lots of girls involved. Okay, it's been shut down because of COVID-19, but you get the sense that if given the right environment, if encouraged, if given the opportunity, there is a lot of talent out there in all sports for girls. But the point made with their Lance is correct, because you see the same names over and over again, and it's not their fault that they're being selected. Why aren't we seeing other players, other young talents throughout the region banging down the door and say, look, this person has been here for 10, 12 years, averaging next to zero, it's my turn now.
The film Casablanca was where they said round up the usual suspects, the West Indies women's team, a collection of the usual suspects. Fazeer, thank you very much for your perspective as usual. Before we break, were you any good at football as a teenager, Fazeer?
I could answer that.
I'm glad you identified the teenager period. In my primary school days, I felt I would be the next Pele.
Oh.
I thought I would be the next Diego Maradona. In my adult years, I have resigned to the fact that I can't even kick a line properly.
A line?
All right, my friend, all the best to you. Thank you again. We'll talk again. An honest man, Fazeer Mohammed. We take a break. We come back with more of the Sports Back Zone.